Joined now by KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Trump, and a woman who was also unfairly attacked by the Obama administration and the corrupt leadership of the Comey FBI. She's also an author of Revolution Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, thanks for being here on the Salcedo Show.
It's really great to be with you, Chris. Thank you.
I want to get your take on the breaking news. The names of those who requested that Flynn be unmasked have been released. The names like Vice President Joe Biden, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and the Chief of Staff to Obama, Dennis McDonough. Your reaction?
Several things. One, this is way before anybody thought they were doing this. They were doing this right after the election because they didn't expect Trump to win. But the rationale, Chris, all along for going after General Flynn, for the Mueller investigation, for this whole genesis of Russia collusion was that General Flynn talked to the Russian ambassador on a phone call on December 29th. That was the bad act that all of the Democrats and the intelligence community and their lackeys in the media all pointed to as the original sin. Well, it turns out they were targeting Flynn and wiretapping Flynn and unmasking Flynn long before this. So I think it is just further proof that there was a setup from the very beginning. Why? Who knows? But I think they went after General Flynn because they were afraid he was going to come after them. You know, President Trump and General Flynn and I, we all discussed the need for reorganization of the intelligence community before Trump took office. And I think this is a preemptive strike on their part.
Well, the corrupt left wing in the United States seems to be nothing but deep-seated and persistent. You've got this Clinton appointee judge who's overseeing the case, Judge Sullivan, and he is taking actions, frankly, that have me puzzled. The Department of Justice has dropped this case, yet he's asking for amicus briefs before he dismisses it, even with all the evidence that you and I have been seeing over the last couple of weeks. What is your take? What are we seeing here from Mr. Sullivan?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't think it's fair to me to comment on the ins and outs of the legal maneuverings on anybody's part. But what I will say is that General Flynn and I were targeted and treated with some of the same tactics. The FBI shows up unannounced, tries to convince you that you're not a target, you don't really need a lawyer. But yet the whole time they were setting General Flynn up for a perjury trap, and they were setting me up in the same way. The same way they did with General Flynn, they did with me. They controlled all of my files and records and phone logs and text messages, and then they could quiz me on them. What about this phone call on Tuesday? What did you mean by that? And you get it wrong, and you think, well, I thought that was Wednesday. And they can then hop up and say, aha, perjury, we've caught you in a trap. And then you're in a position, as General Flynn is in a position now, of proving himself innocent. They don't have to prove you guilty. You have to prove yourself innocent. And they know, whether it's the congressional Democrats or the deep state or the FBI or whoever, they know that they can bankrupt the average citizen because you have to pay for all these legal fees yourself. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in my case, and in General Flynn's case, millions of dollars. So there are many ways they have to come after you.
Well, I interviewed former acting Attorney General Whitaker yesterday, and he believes what we're seeing now with Flynn is just the tip of the iceberg. You concur?
Absolutely. There were too many people in on this from the very beginning. And my question is, you know, their stories keep changing. Well, Vice President Biden didn't know anything about it. Well, it turns out he was in a meeting where it was discussed. President Obama didn't know anything. But, well, it turns out there was a White House meeting where this was discussed. The stories that General Clapper and Mr. Brennan and Mr. Comey and Mr. McCabe all talked about, where they said, well, this is clearly Donald Trump is a Russian agent. This is clearly Russian penetration, Russian collusion. They knew from the beginning that there was nothing to it, and yet they perpetrated this hoax on the American people, and they tore this country apart for 3 years. And so I do think this is just the tip of the iceberg. What were they trying to uncover? I mean, cover up. And who knew what, and when did they know it?
You know, and I've long believed that an operation like this could not have gone on unchecked without the cooperation of some folks on Capitol Hill. And I asked this of Mr. Whitaker. I'll ask it of you. Do you believe that elected Democrats or maybe even elected Republicans could get roped in legal trouble for what happened to Flynn, what happened with this whole Trump-Russia collusion fiasco and fake investigation?
Look, again, I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to the specifics of the legal ins and outs, but I sure hope so, because it's pretty unethical when you have the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and the head of the CIA and the head of the FBI and the director for national intelligence all going on television and saying this is a Russian collusion, Trump is a Russian agent, they're all in on this, we have to protect the republic from the evil Donald Trump and all the people around him, when at the same time they were saying under classified briefings, oh no, there's no evidence of collusion, we can't find anything. So they were saying one thing to stir up the American people and justify their attacks against President Trump and his administration, and yet on the other hand, they knew what they were saying were lies.
Lastly, I want to focus on what happened to you, because what I've seen happen to people that I've watched for years, have followed for years, have admired for years, you happen to be one of those individuals.
Thank you.
I cannot believe that our government, in the course of one administration, has been so corrupted. What did you go through, and have you just ever sat there and said, my goodness, I can't believe how far we have fallen?
Sure. I mean, I when it was all over for me and the Mueller investigation and those people, I thought wanted me to plead guilty to crimes I didn't commit. So I told them I wouldn't do it. I think they also implicated that if I would implicate General Flynn or President Trump or others, that maybe they would go a little easier on me. Well, I wouldn't do that either. And when it was all over and I had to face that very daunting decision of, do I just try to get out of this however I can, or do I keep to my values and character, tell the truth, come what may? And I finally decided to do that. But when it was all over, Chris, I left the country with my husband. I took 2 years to try to figure this all out. And that's when I wrote this book, Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. It's my sense of what was happening in the Obama administration and then in the Trump administration, what was going on with the Mueller investigation. And my conclusion, finally, that what America's in the middle of right now is a political revolution where the people, the voters, the average Americans, are taking power back into their own hands and trying to grasp it out of the permanent corrupt bureaucracy, which feels that they're in charge, and the American people, well, they can just go mind their own business. So I think it's about time that we, the people, are taking it back.
Well, KT McFarland, for what you had to go through, I think the entire country should get T-shirts printed up saying, I survived the Obama era. Thank you, lady. I appreciate the time here on the Chris Salcedo Show.
Thanks, Chris.